I hated lunchtime when I was in elementary school. I was never good at navigating the rules of social engagement among preteen girls, which probably had a lot to do with the fact that I was definitely nerdy and shy and tended to take people at their word. Even when I got into middle school and high school, my friends were scattered across various groups, so there was never a clear table for me to choose. The walk from the cafeteria line to a table, any table, was always an exercise in excruciatingly shy awkwardness and inward anxiety. But in the summer, camp, both Stony Lake, our church's camp, and Interlaken, which is a music camp, gave me a sense of belonging, a chance to sit at a table without worrying about becoming the unwitting butt of someone's cruel joke. Of course, neither experience was perfect, because kids are kids and I was still shy and nerdy. But both places gave me a chance to put at least some of my insecurities aside and just be. At camp, I didn't have to carry the baggage of relationships I couldn't trust. College opened up the world to me too. I met people who seemed pretty amazing then, and now I just feel incredibly privileged to know them. I got involved in my campus ministry and I made lifelong friends there, friends I shared faith-forming experiences with, not only weekly worship, but conversations, dinners, Bible studies, and an eye-opening trip to Honduras with Church World Service that helped me realize my sense of call to ordained ministry and social justice. My home congregation, St. Paul in Dearborn, gifted me with a theological upbringing steeped in grace. Their partnership with what became Living Water Ministries ensured that my parents prioritized sending me to camp. I now know that my pastor must have connected my campus ministry to me because I received a postcard inviting me to church when I arrived, fresh-faced and wide-eyed, in my dorm. I was raised by my parents, by my church family, by camp, and by my campus ministry to know that I am a beloved child of God and that nothing can separate me from that love. All too often, religion is used as a way to control people, as a way to scare them into avoiding certain behaviors. It's a key component of prosperity gospel culture, the idea that I get what I deserve, that my health and wealth somehow show that God is rewarding me for my good works. It's something that makes sense to us on a rational level and fits in nicely with the myth of the American dream. It also creates a clear in-group and a clear out-group, the makers and the takers, if you will, to quote a certain senator. But that is simply not how God's grace works. And it's especially harmful when people see that they're down on their luck, when they're excluded, when life is rough, when they're dealing with a time of immense loss, as we are. Death, illness, jobs, canceled school, canceled sports, the inability to worship in person, the inability to attend camp. Our tendency to blame people for their misfortune stems from this deep-seated desire to make sense of the world and from the instinct for self-preservation that says, it's not going to happen to me. But that tendency destroys empathy, both for ourselves and for those around us. One of the central points of Lutheran theology is the way of the cross, that God walks with us in the midst of our pain and suffering, that we do not receive material rewards for our good works, that our spiritual journey is never concluded because we cannot ever be good enough on our own. We depend entirely on God. Being free of the idea that we have to earn our keep with God means that we start to realize the bad things and the good things are not down to us. And so we can extend grace not only to ourselves, but to others too. Here's the rub. We often downplay faith formation for children, youth, and young adults. figure it doesn't really matter who's in charge as long as they're nice enough and at least moderately responsible. This is not to downplay the efforts of amazing volunteers and staff people who care deeply for our young people and work very hard to make meaningful educational experiences. But when we don't invest in these ministries, and when we're choosing our curriculums and materials, when we're planning our retreats, we need to remember that this is the moment when they're getting their foundational knowledge of who God is and how God sees them. It matters whether they learn that God is a malevolent Santa Claus ready to strike them down for the tiniest infraction, or whether they know that God is the ground of their being, the source of life, the fount of grace and love, walking with them through their most difficult times, accompanying them on their journey. It matters whether they know that God sees them as a beloved child, reverently and wonderfully made, part of the beloved community. This is why it's so essential to have great ministry initiatives for children, youth, and young adults. And camping and campus ministry are a huge part of that. Camp was such a big part of my life as a kid. I went to Stony Lake every summer from 3rd through 8th grade. I was a counselor at Mishawaka. Campus ministry saw me through 2 university degrees. Both contributed to my own sense of call as a pastor, and I am so looking forward to the day when I can bring my kids to Stony Lake to play in the woods, learn how to canoe, and learn how deeply God loves them, and how God is with them even and most especially in the worst of times. A theology that says I get what I deserve is shallow and easily broken by hard times. A theology that ignores injustice is a theology that quickly becomes irrelevant when a child or a young adult awakens to the fact that the world is an unfair place. A theology that says I can't marvel at the world through the lens of scientific discovery while also acknowledging that God has created me and loves me is defective. A theology that says God is out to get me and I am alone in the valley of shadow is harmful. Our God is the one who will find us wherever we are, no matter the cost. There is no part of our human existence that God will not experience with us. Our God promises to accompany us anywhere, even to the cross. And this is the message that turns our merit-based world upside down. God never promised to take us around the valley of shadow or keep us from entering it. But God does promise to be right there with us in the midst of it. There is joy and sorrow just as surely as there are mountains and valleys. The trials we suffer were not sent to test us, but God can make good come out of evil just as God can make a way out of no way. Our God is the one who will walk with us through every piece of bad news, through every despairing season, through every time when we feel completely lost, accompanying us out of the valley and up onto the mountainside, where we can look out over all that has happened. Our God is the one who sets a place at the table for us, even if we are certain we don't deserve one. Even if we walk into the lunchroom carrying our tray, deeply unsure of where to set it down, God says, "Come on over. There's a place for you here." This is a message that never gets old, one that needs to be repeated from birth to death. You are created by a loving God who has called you good, and you are loved. It's the foundation of a faith that can weather the most torrential storms. If this is a message adults need to hear, think of how much more our kids and young adults need to hear it too, especially the ones who are hearing something very different in other parts of their lives. We hear Psalm 23 so often that it can begin to lose its impact. But at the heart of it is the knowledge that even in the most difficult times, you are loved and you are never alone. God is with you through your joys and sorrows, and God will continue to be with you to search for you and to always find you, to always have a place for you, no matter what. Amen.